Welcome to the Small Giants Fishbowl. This topic is Start the Conversation about Mental Health in the Workplace. In this fishbowl, Meg Switala and Karen Nelson of Tier 1 Performance will share their process for leveraging the workplace for starting the conversation about mental health. We'll learn about their experience following this journey at Tier 1 and the positive impact it had on their employees' lives and their company culture. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is just talk to you a little bit about who Tier 1 is and how we got involved in this initiative. And then also just share with you what this journey is all about, and so that you can kind of see what we did and what we offer to other organizations as well. And then we'll get into how it made an impact on our organization, as well as some of the others that have implemented since. So we'll go ahead and if you want to flip, so Karen will give you a little background of who Tier 1 is.
So we're a consulting company. Our head office is in Northern Kentucky. We employ about 200 people across the United States, with about half of them being in the greater Cincinnati area. And we are a consulting firm. We help companies activate strategies. We have a blend of talents, and we are growing at a pace of about 20 to 25% annually. So you can see some of our folks here on the screen proudly wearing their Tier 1 swag. So yeah, at a minimum, I would say we are a collection of talented and very unique and all obviously very complex people, as every company is.
So just to give you a little bit about who we are, we clearly believe that organizations exist to serve people and not the other way around. And our purpose is to help people do their best work. How we got involved in the mental health initiative is our organization, like many of yours, it thinks about how we can provide a broader impact, how we can serve the community and each other. And thinking through ways to do that. There was a lot of discussion around, there's so many great causes out there, but very few people talk about something that seemed to impact all of us, and that's mental illness. And so whether through a family member, a friend, colleague, or personally, as we started to talk about it, like, wow, this is a cause that really impacts so many, yet very few people talk about it. So we thought, why don't we take that on and see if we can help reduce the stigma. So Rachel, if you want to go ahead and advance the slide. We started this notion of let's take mental illness and as we did that, we recognized that we're not experts in the area of mental health. So we reached out to doctors at a local facility here, which is actually well known throughout the country and the world, and that's the Linder Center of Hope. So we met with those doctors, and really our thinking on this is we're a small organization. We don't have millions of dollars to donate to a cause, but we do have experts and consultants in the area of change management, of communications, technology, adult learning theory, visual design, research, and communications. So we thought if we can leverage our expertise and create an experience that could help perhaps make a broader impact in reducing this stigma, and take that to other organizations free of charge, and perhaps continue on and carry this message forward and make the impact that way. So as we met with the doctors, really in this initial working session, they pointed out to us this great need within organizations to address mental health and mental illness in particular. And so we thought, well, maybe we could start from the standpoint of stress reduction. I mean, as we all know, that stress can be a trigger to mental illness. But the response to that is, while stress reduction is very important for your mental health, It is for the healthy, and there is a great need to address mental illness directly as a brain-based disease. So with that, we decided to create this experience or journey that we could take to address mental illness. And so our program goal, so our intent was to increase awareness around mental illness, and to educate on the signs and symptoms of the most common mental illnesses, provide information and resources on how to get help and support, and also to gain an understanding of the importance of family mental health history. And why, just as you need to know if you have heart disease in your family, why is it important to know about your mental health history within your family? And then to reduce the stigma surrounding it. So this next slide just kind of gives you this big picture view of what the journey's like. As we have offered it to other organizations, what we do is we start off with this kickoff prep call with the CEO of the organization. And I will point out that our experience has been that a true key to success around this is the tone that is set by the CEO, by the leadership. It really can't be something that comes from HR or comes from the outside. It has to be something that's personally believed in to make the bigger impact. So we start with this prep call and we kind of walk through what it will be like. And then the first step of the whole journey is this kickoff meeting. And so we have all of this created for any of you, any organization that's interested in it. We have a toolkit created where the kickoff presentation is a template, but what we ask you to do is to just customize it. So to put in your logo, your branding, but also to tie it into your current initiatives and your current values. So the way that presentation, and I'll get into a little bit more detail about that as we go through, but that's the kickoff presentation. And then over a course of 4 weeks, there's a cadence of 2 emails a week. And the emails really have some challenges and reflections and link you out to the website, which has various resources from small video clips on specific topics to some challenges and forms and templates that can help you facilitate some conversations. And then during the course of this, we do have a feedback and call with the organization just to see how it's going. Are you getting any conversations happening? Can we help do some things to sort of ignite other conversations? And so we have some tips on how to do that. And then we also prep for that final workshop, which sort of wraps up this 4-week journey. And so that final presentation, what we have done is brought in a doctor who can then speak to the organization, kind of recap all that was learned through the experience, but then also just directly answer any questions. So I think this has been a really valuable and powerful experience for so many of them in it to have access to experts in it. So with that, I'm going to walk you through some of the details of the journey. So like I said, it starts with this kickoff. And again, it's really important that it's the CEO or the leaders that are speaking from their heart. And I will tell you, we launched this recently in an organization where the CEO stood up and just shared her story and said, I look at mental health the way she views physical health, and that sometimes it comes on a spectrum where you're feeling and being able to recognize that. And she spoke to how she had a family history of depression, and that it had appeared for her in a way that she knew she needed to get treatment for it, and also recognize signs in her daughter. So just sharing her story, recognizing that 1 in 5 have a mental illness, that it is so common, but so not as often talked about, right? So she set the tone for the launch. She opened up this environment of like allowing others to feel less vulnerable as well as they need to share their story. So, but I will point out here, when we launched this, the intent wasn't necessarily that our employees would share their stories with each other. That the intent really was that we increased awareness and started the conversation with someone. So whether it was a family member, a friend, or being able to just have the tools to talk to someone. But we have found over the course of this that it does open up that environment to share with others. We had another organization where one of the employees loved the idea they were doing this and wanted to share her story of caring for her daughter, as well as her husband. And so she recorded it on a video as part of the kickoff. So, and then I will say too, like we really want to be behind the scenes. We want organizations to own this. So we try to provide that template to make it easy so there's not a lot of work involved, but then also offer the opportunity, like I said, to customize it so it feels like it's your own. So then we get into the website, the emails that you'll see link out to this website that we created. So we collected this content and really vetted it with the doctors because there are, as you may know, that there's so many sources available and sometimes they contradict each other. So sorting through the research and the information on it and putting it on this website, I'll tell you the process of getting that reviewed through the experts was very helpful. And so then this next component just talks to you about the weekly messaging. So each week there's a theme. So we'll start with kind of what and why and getting that conversation started. And then move into identifying the big 5 illnesses and understanding the signs and symptoms. And then in week 3, we talk about the stigma and silence around it and how to get out of that. And then in week 4, it's around the care and conversation. So this next piece will show you kind of the examples of the emails. And in week 1, we kick it off with this survey. And the intent there was, we thought that everybody was impacted by mental illness. And this allows you to kind of test that with your employees, and ask those kind of questions. Do you know of a family member or friend who has been impacted? And so then in week 1, we start to send out to the website, which has a lot of the resources. And then in week 2, the employee survey, sorry. So that's just an example of how you'll see that's all, it's all readily available. And then what we do with those survey results, pretty quick turnaround time in being able to put it into this infographic, which you're then able to display throughout the organization and post it on your sites and post it in your break rooms. And this immediately generated discussion and as we all recognize the results of our own organization. So that's the infographic template. And then these next few slides will just sort of walk you through the weeks ahead. So in week 2, we also talk about the family mental health history. And then you'll see in this next slide that it gives you a form that you can actually document your family medical history. When I was first involved in this project, and Karen, you may have experienced the same, it was kind of an aha to me that to even think about, how often every time you're in the doctor's office, you're tracking all of your physical family medical history, but to really break down the mental history, health history, and how and why that's so important. You kind of learn through the experience and the information in the website. And then week 3, like I said, this one gets into breaking the silence around mental illness. And then in week 4, it focuses on conversation and connecting. And then it will wrap up with a workshop. But what this slide points out is, so each of those emails has a reflection and a challenge in it as well. And then we created these table tents. So those themes can be carried forward into conference rooms and lunch rooms and break rooms. And so it just offered this opportunity to start, I know, Karen, you probably recall, like some of our meetings, we would say, oh, have you guys looked at the email this week? Did you reference some of those materials? And it just would start a conversation right there, and maybe even, you know, after those meetings. So just taking a few minutes before you kind of get started with your regular meeting.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I might add to that is, in our experience, we use an internal social media tool, Yammer, which many companies use these days. But we started a group on mental health and just offered, if people wanted to share stories, they could. And the number of people that chose to step forward and share their stories was really, I would almost say, overwhelming. And it created these connections and understandings among people that we could have never really imagined. And that was a byproduct of, again, opening the door and saying, it's okay to have these conversations. This is something that is very real and touching so many of us in so many ways. So,
yeah. So that's, as I alluded to, the wrap-up workshop. And again, that also has a structure, a template already created to provide that guideline, and of course can be customized as well. And so then at the end of the experience, we did the post-journey survey to just sort of measure that impact of throughout those 4 weeks. And as Karen spoke, the Yammer was a huge tool for us. And I think we had a lot of people just encourage each other to share things. And it really could be used for, and it still is today. So we launched this a few years ago, and we still use that group to share articles or share stories or things that are happening in the community that are related, and just a great way to spur conversation around it. So what's required from an organization that may be interested in launching this? It's really pretty minimal amount of time involved, but the big piece of it is the true commitment to it and wanting to set that open and trusting environment within your organization to be able to share and start this conversation. And then, you know, the distribution of the emails will come from the CEO, because again, we want it to come from within the organization. And then it's very helpful to have a liaison to just sort of coordinate the launch and the wrap up. And really what is also very valuable is when we have those in the organization that are pretty passionate about this topic, that are helping encourage others or sharing their own experiences. And gosh, I feel like we have endless stories within our own organization of how that happened, and just even connecting on similar experiences, allowing people to share references. I mean, just as you ask for referrals on, you know, a pediatrician or a physical therapist, and just looking for referrals for whatever specific illness or incident you're trying to address. And then, so what I was going to get into here is just the impact it's had on our organization. So, like I said, we thought everybody was impacted by mental illness, and our survey results showed that 94% of us are. and 85% had a friend or colleague, and 79% through a family member. So whether you're trying to help support someone else or managing your own illness, it seems that everyone in some way is impacted. And then these next couple slides will just sort of walk you through the pre and post survey that we did. So I won't go through these in detail, but you can see that our experience had increased the number of people who had a conversation with a friend or colleague around mental illness, and increased those who were at least moderately aware of their family's mental health history and why that's important. And then on this next slide, you'll see the percentage of people who talk to their children, 14 or over, about their family health history, and understanding why that's important and why the age 14. And some of the things that we learned, and many of you may be aware of this, but just within that age group of 14 to 24, that 50% of mental illnesses that show up later in life have begun in those age groups, and being able to treat it in that period of time increases the likelihood of being well substantially as you get older. And then also, sadly, that the average length of time it takes for someone to get treatment is 8 to 10 years. And you pause and think about, wow, I mean, we would never let a physical illness go that long, and the impact it has when it goes that long. And so that's what we're hoping that some of this will start to do, is reduce that and encourage people to seek help and get treatment and get well, because it is a brain-based disease. And then the decrease you can see of those who weren't sure how to talk to the children or felt uncomfortable. And then the next slide points out some other statistics from the pre and post, that we had about 7 out of 10 tier 1ers who talked to someone about mental illness for the first time and increased their knowledge around it, or talked with another colleague about it. And then we had about half of our tier 1ers talk to someone outside the organization about our own initiatives. So this was a really easy way to start the conversation with others. Parents on the soccer field, or a friend who may start to approach a conversation, and you can say, you know what, this is pretty common. It's really important to get help. And we're doing this initiative at work, and I've learned so much. It just immediately is an easy entryway to start that conversation. So beyond all these statistics, really we take this step back, and I think that's what was most powerful to us and most moving to us. And I've seen this with other organizations as well, are the stories that came out, the feedback that was shared, the gratitude for addressing this. And Karen, I know you can speak to several of those stories that we continue to share. And I will say, I feel like we've taken our culture, which was already pretty open and trusting, and even strengthen that trust. And honestly, you probably feel the same way. I feel like it's about once a week I'm having a conversation with someone about mental health or mental illness. So
yeah, I think Meg and I are probably the two that probably engage in those conversations most readily, because people tend to come to us in general, but they also know that we're very passionate about the topic and very approachable. I think the other thing, just the previous slide that struck me so is the pride that our tier 1ers have in saying, look at what we're doing. I mean, we're making this kind of an impact out in our community, and that alone is just, it's so compelling. And we have a really strong message in our culture at Tier 1 about caring for one another, and have even taken our values and put them into statements to try to bring them to life in terms of what our norms and behavioral patterns are. And one of them that I'll just share is I impact people, and I recognize that in each moment I impact others. When someone needs help, I stop and help them. This mental health initiative is so aligned with that. So we say that in our value statements. This is an example of where, no, we are encouraging you to stop and help them. If you notice that somebody at work obviously needs some kind of assist, or, help them, and if you don't want to come to somebody at work, help them find somebody that can help them, and that alone, and giving your associates, if I have to call it permission, I suppose, but no, we really want you to stop. And we literally say in this statement, I try to do the loving thing. And no one's going to dispute that that's not a loving thing to do. I mean, you're caring deeply. And I think one other element that I'll just mention is we have something that a little model we've put together at Tier 1 that describes what thriving at Tier 1 looks like. And we've really broken it down into 4 primary sort of quadrants of what that looks like. The first 3 being a passion for the work that we do, establishing connections with one another, and a path to growth and improvement. And our 4th is literally wellness. It's about taking care of ourselves and keeping ourselves whole, being able to go home to our families and take care of them without feeling that somehow that's taking away from your work or your career. We don't want people to have to make that choice. And we know that people are better at work when they are well. And so this is just another example of where we can walk our talk and say, no, when we say we care deeply, and we care that you are holistically well, not just that you get, physical therapy for your injured knee, but also that you get the therapy and help that you need to live your life more fully. So those are just a couple of little internal examples that I might use of, in our culture, how we've been able to really bring the conversation to life. Yeah, these are quotes, Meg, if you want to jump in. I have a couple more things I can share if we have time, but.
Yeah, so these are just some of the quotes. I won't read them verbatim, but you can see that, just increasing the awareness and understanding of mental illness, and recognizing that everyone is struggling with something at any given time. And really how you bring your whole self to work. And for us as an organization and for each other to be compassionate and aware of that, so that we can help each other be their best. So there's a few other quotes in here as well. This one, our organization, I think this is very typical of many organizations, do a lot around well-being and physical health, mindfulness, stress reduction. But this comment here, but this is the first time we had addressed mental illness directly. And so it was pretty powerful to hear from one of the organizations we launched this with recently. And then this one about bringing everyone closer together and really fostering that culture. And it really does pull each other together and create this environment of trust.
One thing I might add there, we have opened up a conversation about, sort of in a more general way, about vulnerability, and specifically with regards to shame, which is Brene Brown is a leader of thought in that arena. And how sad is it that anyone should have to feel any shame associated with something that they literally have no control over. Yeah. And so, what a wonderful gift you're giving somebody to help them get the help they need, and just bring them back to being whole and able to really, again, I'll just come back to really live a richer, fuller life, whether it's at work or not. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, I guess our question to all of you is, as well is, now that you have seen this, I mean, maybe a challenge, a takeaway from today, even is just to share that you attended this webinar and you were discussing this topic, and to see if that opens up the doors to others sharing their experience, and just even asking that, try it yourself. Have you in any way been impacted by mental health? And then certainly, if any of you are interested in this toolkit, we are more than happy to offer it to anyone who's interested.
So we got a few questions in the chat, so we'll go through those, and then if you have any others, feel free to send them our way. Okay, so the first one, what size organization would you recommend this for? And how big of a group would you say is appropriate for the kickoff meeting?
Okay, so what we've done to date, I mean, our organization is, when we first launched it, we had 100 employees, and we're now at 200. And that's been about the size. And we've gone down as small as an organization of 15. So, so for right now, it's been in that size and space. I think we've met with very large organizations that were interested in this initiative and how to get this started, or this conversation and topic started within organizations. So I think we're still trying to figure out how that may work for large organizations, but certainly smaller ones is easy. And then as far as how big of a group appropriate for the kickoff, we've had a few sessions where we've had maybe 50 attend and then recorded it. Also had smaller groups. So the recorded version worked when there were some more remote employees that couldn't attend at that specific time.
And then there are a couple here that are tied in, so I'll kind of combine them, but how do you navigate HR boundaries around this topic? And then the one that's similar is, did you have to ensure that there wasn't a non-discrimination policy? So did employees ever express concern on being outed about their mental illness?
Do you want to? So I think this question comes up a lot. And really the way we view it is, if someone came to you and said, I'm going to need surgery on my knee, I'm going to be out a while, how would you address that? And would you discriminate against them, right? So this is just another illness. If they come to you and say, explain their scenario, what our viewpoint is, we want to support you with whatever your challenge may be, physical, mental, or any life experience challenge you're having. Want to support you, want to help you get the right care and tools and resources available. And then we do, as an employer, still expect you then to do that. And so to move forward in that, so that you are eventually able to perform your work in the best way possible.
Yeah, and I can't think of any instance at all that we've had to do anything that was beyond our standard, what we would do for any illness. It's just, it's something someone needs to deal with. Sometimes they need a little bit of time, sometimes they need a longer amount of time, and sometimes it can negatively impact their performance. And I think people have to manage that within the cultural norms that you would manage any other illness, is the way I would say it. But for us, again, the word stigma comes to it. It's historically something that people have been awkward and uncomfortable speaking about, when in fact it is, again, very pervasive. And it is costing organizations quite a bit by not addressing it, because people are compromised in trying to get their work done. So again, it's, we can talk about it and address it, which is, I think, the right thing to do, or we can continue to hide behind something that we're afraid of, or a fear that something negative might happen. Our experience at our company and with the companies that we've piloted this with, that has not been the case. So I don't know if that addresses, it's a little ambiguous, but so is this subject.
That's fair enough. This one I think is good, and I probably should have mentioned this at the beginning, but can you tell us what your roles are? And so who in the organization, you said you needed CEO buy-in, but who in the organization worked on the rollout?
So that's an interesting question. I mean, currently I work in organizational development, organizational effectiveness here internally. When I got started in this initiative, though, our team put together really didn't have anything to do with the roles that we served, other than we were trying to get a mix of experts in different disciplines to pull together the journey. So I would say that the roles where we've rolled it out in other organizations then have been more of the leadership, again, because of that's key, that it can't be pure, that it's just another program or another initiative, or like, oh, have us lunch and learn this topic. I don't know if that's answering the question for you. I think how we got involved in it wasn't necessarily from the roles I serve within my organization right now.
I agree. The one thing that I think is exceedingly important is the decision at our company to even create this initiative was made by the 3 founders in a board meeting when they decided this is how they wanted to give back. And the commitment was, and Meg, you might need to correct me on this, well, it's a 5-year commitment, and is it 1 million hours of our talent?
So in effect, $1 million worth of consultant hours of time.
Yeah. So it's not us funding something; it's us offering our talent back to the community, and this is the result of that work, along with a couple of other initiatives in addition to this. But So I think. I mean, my role, again, is we're growing, so our roles transition every year, it seems like. The role that I serve in is primarily in the culture of our company, as well as the growth and development of our associates. And so with that, I can advocate deeply for this as part of something that is ingrained in what we do. And I would just come back to our founders, and one of the 3 founders is also our CEO. They give us so much autonomy on this and support us deeply. And so even pulling our consultants out of consulting to spend time on this initiative to develop this work, and another piece associated with it is addressing teen suicide, and everybody knows how much that's been in the news, and so it's just, again, it's a moment of intense pride for this company that I work for that has chosen to give back to our community in this way. So yeah, we're both passionate about it, obviously, but we're also there are people all over our organization that are as passionate and as approachable about this subject. So
and have served in different roles in different ways related. So
yeah, I mean, they'll present, will, I mean, we're just 2 of many, so.
Okay, great. Okay, so does Tier 1 offer financial assistance to employees beyond traditional health benefit to get professional help if necessary? What best practices can you share?
So that's an interesting question. I wouldn't say directly that we've allocated, I just feel like we have this culture of support. So if you were challenged and certainly we all have to recognize that navigating the insurance and for mental illness is just, it's still behind the times. And so it's still challenging for many. So I'm not aware of directly, but I feel like we have this culture of support. So if there was that need, we'd figure a way to rally around it.
Yeah. Well, so a couple of things associated with it from my standpoint. We have a very, I would say flexible, maybe it's not really flexible, but we do encourage folks to take what we call wellness days if they need them. So much of that has to do with, at times our consultants can have a very intense period of time at work where, it's like, it's comp timing, I guess, is what I would compare it to. It's like you need a day, you need a few days. And with that, it does give us some flexibility to give people the time they need to take care of what have you. We do have very specific measures and metrics that we hold people accountable to, but we don't tell them when they have to work and when they're allowed to take a doctor's appointment or go pick up their kids from school. We give them quite a bit of autonomy in managing their own workload and delivering the outcomes that we're expecting out of them. If our health benefits they cover within the plan mental illness treatment. If it requires something beyond that, we would typically go into family leave and that sort of thing. We do have something at Tier 1 called the personalized associate experience, which is a very general term, which is if you have something that is really negatively impacting your ability to work, come and talk to us about it, and let's see what we can figure out to let you take care of that and come back to work when you're whole. So we've done some creative things, but honestly, again, I'll come back to it. I can't think of any time that it has ever literally fallen outside of a standard policy. We give people service scholarships. So sometimes, which is paid days off to do service. And if it helps their mental health to go do a service day, I encourage them to do that. So, we try to use things that we have in place that give them some flexibility and some autonomy to take care of themselves and their families the way they need to without, a negative impact on the work. If it does start to impact the work, we talk about it. But sometimes just them knowing that you'll listen means a lot, that they know that, wow, there's somebody that I can go to talk about that. And they care about me enough to help me with it if something comes up. And Meg, we were just talking last week. We've both had very recent conversations with people who absolutely needed help. And I know the person that I've been working with, it was amazing how quickly she got the help she needed. And she might not ever leave the company because of it. She's just so grateful. And it was just us being human with her. So if there's never a wrong time to do the right thing, isn't that what they say?
That's great. Okay. What happened after those 4 weeks?
Oh, great question. And I'm glad you asked that question, because I feel like we talk about, and Karen and I were just talking about this 4-week journey, but then what happened since is, I think, the real story, because we now, like I said, we now just have this very open environment. So some of the things right after, we wanted to keep the momentum going. So we did some things around keep the conversation going. And we brought in different speakers on different topics. We had different sessions sharing different experiences. And then we also continue to keep our Yammer Start the Conversation group very active and encourage one another to share stories in that. So since then, people have experienced, you know, the tragedy behind suicide and sharing the story and the emotions behind that on our Yammer group, but also just in conversations in passing, because I think we're always trying to keep this topic current and fresh on top of mind. So we have done several different things within the organization on topics. We've done something with teens too, in a program around that. So I mean, I don't know if you have other examples that come top of mind, but it's just.
Well, we certainly, we emphasize it every May, of course, with it being Mental Health Awareness Month, and that we have a monthly all company meeting that we hold virtually, and we were able to, you know, once again refresh with everybody about these particular offerings that we have. It is, to me, it is an ongoing, it is threaded through our culture now. And people that join notice it. They really notice it. And they've overtly stated, I've never seen anything like this. And I know one thing that completely floored me at one point was it also opened up some conversations about other things that are typically, I don't know, almost like awkward or shameful. For example, infertility.
Yeah.
And the number of people in it was like this young woman said, this is what I'm dealing with. Has anybody dealt with this? And they came out, they were like, we're here for you, you know, and how can we help? Not about mental illness specifically, but about supporting people and meeting them where they are and helping them. But that I believe that she was honest about that, because we've been honest about other things. And she shared it just very publicly. And she has twins, by the way, now.
Yeah.
So,
supporter. And so back to how to keep the conversation going, another organization that just wrapped up their workshop, they kind of laid out some intentional things they wanted to do in the year ahead to be pretty deliberate about keeping the conversation going. So some things around mindfulness and support from their health insurance carrier for those who needed it, and some commitment cards on what individuals were going to do in terms of being able to talk with others or talk with family members. So I think that's an important part of that wrap-up workshop as well, is to identify some things you want to do to keep it top of mind and then to continue it.
One thing that just struck me, and Meg, you can probably speak to this, I cannot. About the financial assistance piece, not about tier 1, but if somebody went to the Lindner Center of Hope, is that insurance based, or will they take, I don't know. I mean, I just literally don't know.
Yes,
okay.
They do take insurance. Okay. And then yes, there is a separate, there's multiple different ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that would be, I mean, that is a source that's right in our city that I know we've had a number of people that we sent there that have gotten really, really good care. So
it sounds like maybe some partnerships, even as part of the program, sounds like that was helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, so one more here. So what changes have you seen at tier 1 in your culture after this?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think some of the stories we've told express that. The one that has really surprised me is how our employees have opened these dialogues with our clients, because they've built connections with them. that have then opened the conversation with their families and shared stories in these other organizations that are just it's the second and third degree of influence. And that's what really, that's the real reason we're doing this, is to further the conversation, well beyond our doors and the people that we know, and out into these broadened communities. So, we're a very quirky, I would say, at times. One of our value statements is I bring my whole self, quirks and all. But that really means that we are whole people. We are complex. Everyone is. And just that, that knowing that I don't care what people post on their Facebook page, everybody's dealing with something. And so it is just much more of a reality-based point of view that, look, we're all growing, we're all learning, we're all dealing with things. And I don't know, some of that comes, I think, from that just being our general, we're like, yep, we're all out here, we're doing the best we can. And if you need a little grace, then, please ask for it. So it happens at all levels of the organization. And I think it takes somebody about a year to a year and a half before they really believe it. When they join, they're like, oh, literally, this is really a real thing.
Okay, well that's it for this one. Check out more Fishbowls exclusively for the Small Giants community at smallgiants.org.